Hey everyone, and welcome to episode 31 of Practically Zero Waste, a podcast for making zero waste living as practical as possible. This week's episode is particularly exciting because I have with me today the co-founder of the Share Waste app, Eli Bramborova in Sydney, Australia. Nailed it. We talk all about the value of preventing food waste, composting food scraps, and building that bloody community with people around you in order to save the planet. If you're into all of that and want to help support the podcast, you can leave a rating or review on Apple Podcasts or head to anchor.fm/practicallyzerowaste and hit the support button. And if you haven't seen our Instagram and Facebook post from last week about our super awesome giveaway contest, head over to your social media and check it out. Contest closes May 26th at midnight, open to listeners worldwide. But enough of that, let's get down to sharing our waste. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Where are you in Canada?
So I'm in Ontario, but southern Ontario, so we've got a pretty nice climate. It's not bitter cold. Yeah.
Yeah.
Australia, what part of Australia are you in?
Sydney.
Sydney.
So Australia is great if you want to spend a lot of time outdoors.
Oh, good. Yeah, totally.
Winter's like the coldest would be 10 degrees and it's still sunny, so you get a lot of sunshine, which works magic on how people think and how people walk with smiles on the streets. So
that is so true.
Right.
It's springtime now, and in Canada, and we're just coming into the 10 degree, 15 degree days, and it's amazing. There's so many more people outside, and everybody's smiling. It's really nice.
Yeah.
So what is Share Waste, and what was the story behind it? How did you decide to make this app?
So the story is actually quite simple. We moved to Sydney to a little apartment in a very busy, very vibrant neighborhood called Newtown.
Okay.
I think the fact that we moved to Newtown is actually quite important for our story. And because we do buy quite a lot of veggies and fruit, we realize we're producing a lot of organic waste. And when you produce a lot of organic waste in Australia, because most of the year it's either warm or really hot here, it starts smelling in the bin pretty much immediately.
Wow, right.
And we also knew that somebody else might be quite happy to use it in their garden, for their worms or for their compost. So we had an idea that maybe somebody local, because the community here is very specific, most people are friendly and open and very, I would say, eco and green oriented. Mm-hmm. We thought, well, maybe somebody would be happy to take our scraps and use them in their garden. I found a lady who actually said, yes, please come over. I'm already taking scraps from a local cafe and from my neighbors. Why not? Let's add up some more to my compost. And that's how the initial idea started. And because my husband is a software engineer, he thought, maybe this would be an interesting side project. So he started working on the beta version of the first app. And that's how the story began.
I love that it's called Share Waste. How did you come up with the name?
Well, first of all, we had to find a name that didn't have a registered website.
Yeah.
But also we actually love sharing. If I could, I would share anything we have in our apartment and all the things we have in our flat. We use car sharings, we go to tool libraries and community libraries. So we love the concept of sharing. I don't think that you need to have everything in your house. Once the community has it, people can easily borrow it and use it and share it and repair it together. There's no point why everybody should buy and have everything separately.
Yeah.
So we wanted to use the concept of sharing and connection and the cycle of things together with the waste. And I think it works quite well.
Mm-hmm. I think it's so beautiful because it's not here, dump your waste at my house, or give me your waste so that I can grow a garden. It's this sharing of something that's valuable as opposed to disposing of something, right?
That's definitely one of our goals, showing people that most things have value, even when you think they don't have any value anymore. Kitchen scraps or any veggie scraps become waste once we dump them in the garbage bin. But before that, we can still use them. We can still give them to somebody's chickens. We can still use them to fertilize the garden, to feed a worm farm, you know? We're trying to keep the resources in their food and life cycle for a little bit longer and then direct them in a better way.
So good. I like that a lot. And I like just talking about how things can contribute so much more if you let them have the chance. If you,
Yeah.
not that they have a personality,
Yeah,
but your food scraps are just dying to be something more than organic matter in a landfill.
exactly. Like, nobody wants to hear about waste, rubbish, garbage.
Yeah.
But for us, it's wonderful, amazing resource full of nutrients. It really is.
Yeah.
If you run a chemical analysis, you find so many important nutrients our soils actually lack these days.
Absolutely.
Most soil is depleted. It's very, very hard in many cases. So
absolutely. And we've talked about this on the podcast a lot too, is that every time you're growing something in the ground, if it's in a garden or if it's in an industrial sized farm, you're depleting the soil because all of the nutrients that was in the ground is going into that plant, and then the plant is removed.
yes, exactly. So, and what happens to the nutrients when we don't just give them back? We need to give them back because we are just using up the soil, all the nutrients, everything that's good in it, but we're not giving anything back.
Mm-hmm.
So everything should go back.
Yeah, so it's kind of like the idea of sharing again is happening with the earth. Like sharing is kind of a give and take. It's not a gift
Yes.
of one-sided, but sharing is back and forth. So you're taking from the earth to have some food, and when you are returning things to the earth, it's the scraps and the kind of nutrients to put it back in there, and that cycle continues.
Exactly. I think that for me also the idea behind it is take only what you need and give what you can.
Exactly.
It's the same with food waste. I mean, there's no need to take more than we actually need for a life or that we need to make us happy. But whatever we don't need, we just should pass it on, give it back, let it somebody else to use it.
Absolutely. I like that a lot. Tell me a little bit about the app and about the website that's attached to it. How does that kind of work?
We have a desktop app and 2 mobile apps for Androids and iPhones.
Mm-hmm.
And the way the app pretty much works is that it's based on a map. So if you go to shareways.com, you can open a map and you can see local people who compost on the map. And if you click on them, you can have a look what they are happy to accept, what they can't accept, how much waste, and what the waste should look like. So anybody can register either as a compost host to accept or as a donor to donate whatever they produce. It can be garden waste, it can be kitchen waste, it can be anything organic that is compostable or that can be fed to farm animals. And once you register, you can contact local compost hosts, or if you're a compost host, you wait for local donors to get in touch with you and offer you their kitchen scraps or organic waste in general.
And so people are allowed to say, in my compost, I would like to not accept, I don't know, meat scraps, or I would like to not accept grease, or even things that are technically compostable according to their label, like maybe a kitchen catcher, you know, those plant-based plastic bags. I don't know what they are.
The variety of what people are happy to accept and what not is actually huge. If you go to any composting guide, they would tell you you can compost this and you can't compost that. Don't put in any meat, don't put in any bread, and don't put any citrus into your worm farm. Mm-hmm. But in reality, there is so much variety. Mm-hmm. And it's very individual because everybody who has a compost, they are proficient in how to run their compost well and how to make their worms happy. So a lot of people would actually accept some citrus in their worm farms if it's cut up very fine and if it's not too much of it. Or a lot of people are happy to accept some meat. Some people would be happy to accept food waste like pasta or bread. I'm not saying that everybody would, but it's very individual. On the other side of that range, there are people who, for example, wouldn't accept tea bags because there's a little bit of microplastic.
Totally, yeah.
So the range is huge. Some people are very strict what they're happy to put in their compost or what they're happy to feed their worms, but some people openly say, I take anything as long as it's shredded or cut up very fine, and as long as it's not too much of it.
Yeah, I've had maybe 4 different people reach out to me in my local area, and they've all come by at some point and dropped off some compost, and I've given them some guidelines. Like, I think it's a great idea to collect it in a large container in your freezer for the week and then come by when you can. I've met them a couple of times, and I want to put up a little sign that says, like, composter this way, like with the Share Waste app information and stuff. I actually have enjoyed so much connecting with people.
And it's great because most people are very creative, so they come up with ideas how to make the system better. And once we have the information, we're happy to pass it on and show other people how they can make the system work really smoothly and very easily for both sides. What we also really like about Share Waste, because for us it's, I would say, half of the whole thing is about sustainability and better use of resources, but the rest is about building community, getting to know people, connecting with local community members. That's equally important for us because we think that the way we treat the planet and our environment very much depends on how we collaborate.
Absolutely. It's partially how we're treating each other.
If people are not in touch, they have no power. And I think that a community has a lot of power if people are connected and they know about the resources they have. I mean, each of us has something, some skills and knowledge and some items and some possessions. But if you take every single person in a community, imagine how rich the community is with all the knowledge, all the skills, all the experience. That's amazing. And that's why we encourage people to meet, because our compost hosts have so much knowledge about composting, about gardening, about everything you can get locally. So that's one of the reasons why we want people to meet and exchange and share and talk. And
I'm so excited to actually, just talking about community, I want to start reaching out to the people who have been in touch with me and who drop off compost on a regular basis, because I love compost. I'm a passionate composter, and so I want to be able to say, oh, what if we did a composting workshop on how to, get the most out of your food scraps before it even comes to my composter? Or what if we, all get together and shovel it and turn it every few months or something? Like, what if we do community things together?
Yeah, that's amazing. That's a great idea. A lot of our compost hosts actually run micro workshops. A lot of our compost hosts, especially the ones who love compost, who already understood that, yes, this is what I need for my garden, and the more I have, the better.
Yeah.
They are trying to organize their donors, and they regularly meet, and they created some guidelines to make the whole drop-off process very organized. Some of them actually have a little community herb garden or a little area in the garden
that's
where the host
lovely.
can go and get some herb clippings or get some excess produce from the garden.
That's a lovely idea.
Are happy to give to their donors some eggs to take home. I mean, what's better? Most of us buy eggs from supermarkets because there is no other option. But once you bring your scraps to host and you get a dozen of eggs to take home from somebody who has very happy free-range chickens, I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah, there's nothing better. That's so cool. The idea of having a little part of my backyard garden, which I'm just in the process of building, we've just moved to this place, that is open for community members to come in, like take a little snip of basil home with them or whatever they're planning for their supper. I like
Yeah.
that so much. I hadn't even thought of that.
In fact, like if you live in a city and don't have a garden, for
Yeah.
example, us, we're a typical example. We live in an apartment in the center. We have no garden, no green space whatsoever. We definitely can't compost here. And if I want to get some fresh basil or rosemary when I'm cooking, in most cases, would have to go to a supermarket.
Mm-hmm.
Or when I go see my host, I can ask them, is it okay if I cut a snip of a few bits of basil?
Mm-hmm.
Most hosts would say, oh, would you like to take some herbs, or would you like to take some tomatoes? We have heaps right now.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, so how far of a walk is it for you to go to your compost host?
So the first lady we had, which was before we started creating the app, she was about 30 minutes walk from us, which was a bit far, especially when you have a 10-kilo caddy full of compost.
Wow.
Compost to be. That was actually one of the reasons why we decided to create an app, to help us find somebody much closer. And now we have 3 hosts. We rotate regularly. All of those 3 hosts have other donors in the area as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say one is about 5 minutes away and the other 2 are about 10 minutes away.
I like the idea of having multiple drop-off spots for you, because then it depends on where you're going to be out and about during the day. Then you make your choice about where you're going to drop off your compost.
Yes, and also you go on holiday and the hosts go on holiday.
Right.
So sometimes, in winter, the whole process is slower, so composting slows down, so they can't accept as much compost as in the summer. And it's nice to have more people.
Yeah.
It's just nice to see them and talk to them and say hi. We also had a few hosts at the very beginning who are not hosting anymore because they moved to smaller places and they can't host, or their compost is too busy so they can't accept anymore. But we're still friends. We still meet regularly when we have time, which is nice.
Nice, yeah. You've made a connection or a relationship there.
Exactly, and being originally from Prague and living here in Sydney without any family, I must say that 95% of people we know here, we met thanks to Share Waste.
That's amazing. So how did you originally get the word out about your app once it was created?
I pretty much spread the word on social media. So we started our Facebook channel quite soon after we released the app. A little bit later, our Instagram account, because in the original stage, we had the app, but nobody knew about it.
Right.
And we didn't really realize how much potential it had. Then it just started growing and growing, and it's been growing since. But at the very beginnings, we met 2 people who were, I think, very important for us, because one of them told us, hey, you need an Instagram account. This is an amazing app. Let's just get the word out.
Totally.
And the other one said pretty much the same. So even when we didn't have any users at the beginning and nobody knew about it, the first 10 or 20 people helped us so much.
Wow.
Like to feel more confident about the potential of the app, just knowing, hey, you have something valuable and it's great and you should tell everybody about it. So I think that helped us a lot in the very beginnings. And then people started sharing it and the community started growing and we are adding more new little features.
That is so
now we
nice.
have 27,000 something members.
What?
Or registered users, yes. And new ones register every day.
Wow.
So it keeps steadily growing.
Oh, congratulations. That's wonderful.
Thank you.
That's so good. And so how many different countries? Do you know, like, who's using it? So many different countries.
It's impossible to count them.
Yeah.
But we have many working communities throughout Australia, New Zealand, the States, Canada, even in Asia and Europe. I was surprised to find out that we have even working communities in countries where English is not spoken, such as Hungary.
Wow.
I mean, it's amazing. We have no formal relationship to Hungary. We didn't physically go there to spread the word about the app, but apparently somebody found us out and told the rest of the community, and then it started spreading slowly. We have a functioning community in Portugal, in Malaysia.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how important is composting for the planet?
Oh my God, it's so important. So I should first explain maybe what happens when we don't compost.
Please do.
So when we don't compost, whatever scraps we have after cooking or mowing the garden, it all goes to landfill. And what happens is in landfill is that there is very little oxygen access. And landfill in general, it's toxic because it's not just our organic waste, but there is a lot of plastic and metal and all packaging, composites, everything nobody else wanted. It mixes together, so it's very toxic. Sometimes people think that when their organic waste goes to landfill, it just decomposes, right? It goes underground. So why we should compost when it can easily decompose in landfill?
Yeah, because they see things rotting.
People, would you like to have a garden on a formal landfill? I don't think anybody would like to have a garden on a formal landfill land because it's toxic. Because in landfill, there are no living organisms and bacteria and worms and the tiny creepy crawlies we need to compost properly. In landfill, there is none of that.
Yeah. And
the result is just a huge toxic heap which produces a lot of greenhouse gases, especially a lot of methane, which we now know contributes to global warming. So that's the biggest reason, ecological, why to compost. Also, for me, it's amazing that composting is the only type of recycling you can do at home. Can you recycle plastic at home? No. Can we recycle paper, cardboard, metal, glass? No. But organic waste, yes, we can. You don't need much space. It's very cheap to start. It's easy. Anybody can learn that. So why we are still not doing it? Or many of us? I don't know. If you have a look at any type of waste recycling, it's very pricey. It's very complex. Most of the waste, most of plastic and glass has to travel to another country to be recycled, and then it's shipped somewhere else. It's such an expensive process, not mentioning the ecological impact.
Right.
But composting, anybody can do it in their garden or on their balcony. You can have a worm farm, or anybody can just walk to their neighbor with their scraps.
We've talked about this again on the podcast too, but like recycling is totally a band-aid. It is not the solution. It is trying to clean up a mess that already exists, but it's not the answer. It's not preventative.
Yeah.
That's hard to wrap your mind around because it's reduce, reuse, recycle. That's the slogan that we've heard from, our childhood. It's what you're taught in school. That's great. Reduce, reuse, but the recycle seems to be where people jump to first. And it's this disposal idea that, I put it in the recycling. I'm not even going to wash it because I'm sure they wash it at the recycling plant. Why wouldn't they? And so to just stop and think, like you said, about could I do this at home? Could I recycle plastic at home? What does it take to recycle plastic? Wow, that's a huge ordeal and requires so much effort and resources and water and time and money to be able to just skip the process and try as much as you can to not buy something in packaging in the first place.
And it also makes you feel great that you can actually do something yourself. Like how many things we can fix, or how many things we know how they work, how many things we can do without a huge process of things going from place to place and a very long process. But this is something anybody can do pretty much without any special knowledge and just a compost bin.
That's great.
To be honest.
Yeah.
For me, there is also another level that goes together with waste, and it's the whole negative impact of the waste market and waste management. And that's what the people who actually deal with our waste in countries such as India and China and many African countries, what working conditions they have and what impact our waste has on their countries, because then it goes to their landfills.
Oh, that's so embarrassing as a
it is
country to send their waste to somebody else's. Like, it's that whole not in my backyard. Like, oh, I don't see the landfill, so it doesn't exist.
So I think it helps when anybody imagines the landfill, how the land looks like when there is a landfill in it, how the people, what working conditions the people have. There are actually people who physically have to select and separate and pick up various pieces of garbage because we weren't able to separate it, or we weren't able to compost it, or we just didn't care.
Didn't bother.
They worked in disgusting working conditions because in those countries there is no work and health safety, nothing like that.
What an extra level to consider. That's so important to visualize.
For me, definitely. I think it's good to know things in context. In many cases, people easily switch to something else without thinking about the whole impact, about the whole process. It's nice to know the whole journey of stuff, like how things are made, how much water there is consumed, how much energy, who is actually involved in the process, what are their working conditions, what about the shipment, what about the logistics, what does it take to create a mobile phone.
Oh my gosh, the number of things, like, oh, my screen's broken, so I just throw it away.
It's crazy, but it's good to think about it.
Yeah.
It's good to think about it, not to feel terrible, but to make better decisions.
Excellent point.
Like, feeling terrible is great, but if it doesn't help you make better decisions in life, there's no use. But it's good to know the context.
So well put. I like that. What is the zero waste community or the low waste movement like in Australia, especially in Sydney?
Yeah, I think it's very vivid. To be honest, we're not so much on social media apart from running our app because we are already so busy with managing everything and trying to keep it together as it's been growing and growing.
Oh, yeah.
But there are two local Australian influencers we really like, and that's Lindsay from Treading My Own Path and Erin from The Road Ginger. I would recommend to anybody to follow because they have great ideas and tips, and they try and they experiment, and they're trying to find their way to zero waste or lower waste life. They're trying to do things better and inspire people, and that's exactly what we are trying to do. To inspire and to show that many things can be done. You just need to make the decision.
That's so awesome. I actually have heard of Treading My Own Path, and so I'm glad I didn't know that she was Australian, so that's really cool.
Yes, yeah. And check out The Road Ginger too.
Absolutely.
It's interesting, but many influencers in sustainability and like sustainable living are young moms with little kids who are trying to live a good life, to leave the planet in a better state than it was for their children, for the future generations.
Absolutely,
I think it's such a frank and nice motivation to think about how we live and how we could do things better.
Here's a random question. No, I guess it's not random because we're talking about compost, but what would happen if the whole world composted, and could we ever go back to that? Because I'm sure. Yeah.
Oh, that would be so amazing. Imagine all the rich, wormful soil and what we could grow in it.
Yeah.
I mean, soil is great, but then imagine we could, more edible gardens, more city farms, more trees. I mean, compost is really important, and it's not just in Australia because Australia experiences regular droughts.
Right.
But compost actually helps the soil retain water.
What? I didn't know that.
Yes, that's one of the reasons why many gardeners want to get as much compost as they can. So it's about the nutrients, but it's also about retaining moisture and water. It's a protection. It's a protection from the sunshine, and it's a way how to keep water in your veggie patch or around your trees.
I didn't realize that. That's awesome. So if the whole world was composting and every city had either municipal compost pickup or everybody had backyard composters that somehow they could contribute to the farmers who don't have enough compost to cover their entire farm, fields.
Yes, and imagine the smaller landfills. For instance, I think it would be pretty much the same in Canada or the States as it is in Australia. But for most people, 50% of what they throw in their garbage bin is compostable.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's mostly food.
Yeah.
Food scraps, eggshells, coffee grounds, used coffee grounds,
wasted food, like leftovers that go bad.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Leftovers. So once we started, composting, once we started Chairways, we had very little garbage because the rest we can easily recycle.
And it doesn't smell. Your garbage doesn't smell because you're not putting anything bad in there. Yeah. Which is important in a warm country.
Yeah, that's definitely very important. Well, it smells in Australia, it attracts vermin, cockroaches, and fruit flies and all of that. So
cockroaches.
Yes.
I like the cold winters in Canada because it kills all the big bugs.
Yeah. So yeah, you pretty much cut down your waste by half.
Absolutely.
Once you start composting.
What's your tip for encouraging people to participate in share waste? Because I know so many people who don't compost because it's not as simple as garbage pickup. And so if it's a 10-minute walk, if it's a 5-minute walk, if it's a 20-minute drive, what can we say to motivate people to just take that extra step? Because I know you just have to care. But also, like, what about people who don't really care? How can we get them on board too?
I think that a lot of people wouldn't care about the planet as such, but maybe they would care about somebody else they know. A lot of our donors are motivated by the fact that they physically go to somebody and they can see their garden and they can enjoy their produce as well. Once the connection is made, I think it becomes easier. Imagining things always helps, and making it more personal. That's why we want people to physically meet, to have the personal contact, to see, hey, look, this is my garden, these are my chickens and ducks, and they're going to enjoy your food scraps. Thank you so much for them.
That's so
nice. A lot of
nice.
people don't realize, because for them it's just those scraps. For them it's just the garbage then they dump in the bin. But for the compost host, it's a wonderful, amazing resource. And once the donors realize, oh my God, somebody's thanking me for my food scraps, somebody's thanking me for my waste, my dinner leftovers, that's what helps them keep motivated, I think.
That's a great idea. And it takes it... You could not talk about being environmentally friendly or save the planet or anything in that whole little bit that you just said, and that could still motivate somebody because it's an act of kindness, really. It's that sharing, right?
Yeah, it's an act of kindness, exactly. Like, you have something somebody else can benefit from. For you, it has no value, but for a local garden or for a local community garden, that's something. It really is something. If you have a look at photos of garden, their new compost and rich soil, how happy they are. They understand how valuable it is. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. I just can't wait to... It's very, very close to planting season in Canada. This episode will be coming out the May long weekend in Canada, which means everybody gets to plant stuff, and I'm so excited.
Best time of the year.
Absolutely.
The excitement. What are we going to grow this year? And planning. Send us some photos.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be great.
If I ever organize a meetup with my compost donors, I will totally send a picture your way.
Yeah, that would be amazing. We're always happy for any photos or people sent through. And
Oh, well, I'm your girl. Trust me. I am very excited about your app. Yeah, no, I have told like every person that I've met.
And that's probably why we have so many people around Ontario.
I love the idea of something like composting becoming normalized and accessible to people. And I think that your app helps it become accessible because people get stuck, right? You think, well, I don't have municipal compost pickup, and I don't have a backyard or a balcony, and I don't want to have worms in my apartment, so what am I supposed to do about it?
That was exactly why we started. We wanted to do something, but there was no convenient way for us. Mm-hmm. And for many people, they're still in this situation. When I think about my grandma's generation, if you didn't compost, you would be weird, right? It was so normal. Yeah. And then people started moving to cities and the whole disposable culture started, and we stopped caring about some things.
Yeah, and there's not as much value put on food, right? Like if you valued every part of that red pepper that you're chopping up, then you wouldn't leave any of it that's edible behind. And the same with any kind of food, especially leftovers, like food that is already cooked and prepared. Some people just don't like leftovers, and that's whatever. Just cook less in the first place in order to not have leftovers. So just put more value because you had to pay for that food. So value it like you paid for it.
For me, that's one of the reasons why people should grow their own food, even in a city, because then they will value it more.
Totally.
Because they would put a lot of work and time and effort in it. They wouldn't cook too much and just throw it in the bin. They would think twice before throwing anything in the bin.
Yeah, and if that could be applied to more things, so not necessarily like make your own clothes or anything like that, but if you don't buy into fast fashion as much, then when you buy something for $3, you don't value it as much. And so when that shirt gets a stain on it that you can't wash out, then throwing it in the garbage is kind of an easy step for you to take because you only spent $3 on it. But like if you value even something that was only $3 so much more, then maybe you'd put more effort into getting the stain out or just turn it into a rag or something else. You know, like we have a value problem, I think.
Totally. But I think that the value problem comes with the whole way the world is functioning, because things are not made locally. People don't know how things are made.
That's true.
The whole process, who's involved in the process. So I think that the first step for most people to rethink maybe the way they live or their waste is to think about every single item they're going to buy and what's behind it, and maybe they will decide that they don't actually need it because it doesn't have the value it's sold for, or it's not sold for the right value, which is in most cases,
right?
Or they actually don't need it because the waste management and the follow-up process would be too expensive, too heavy on the waste management.
Yeah, that is totally one of the main benefits of valuing something local or shopping local, is that it creates this mindfulness or this awareness of where your stuff is coming from and who made it. Like if you are encountering the farmer who grew your sweet potatoes at the farmer's market, then you are putting a face to that and you're understanding, wow, he had to suffer through all this heavy rain we've been having, or lack of rain, we've been in a drought or something, and I can appreciate that this is the fruit of his labor and so, or her labor, sorry. So
exactly, putting a face to all the people involved in the process, that's so important, and you just said it.
Do you have any other tips for people in order to get involved in Share Waste, or anything else that you want to share?
Yeah, so I would like to say say that anybody can register as a compost host as long as they have a worm farm or a compost or a farm animals that can accept more food scraps or more organic waste. Anybody, even if you have a local general store and you have a compost at the back, please do register. Anybody can join in. Also, on the other side, if you produce any type of organic waste that can be composted or that can be fed to farm animals, you can register as a donor. For instance, if you produce sawdust or garden clippings or even newspaper.
Yeah.
Newspaper is very valuable for gardeners. It can go as the brown layer in the compost bin. So feel free to register and offer it to somebody. A lot of gardeners would be so happy for some newspaper because they just don't buy any and they are struggling with finding the brown materials into their compost. So there is always somebody who could actually benefit from what you have and you can't use. Anybody can register. We also have cafes and local little businesses who can actually start sharing their food scraps and especially used coffee grounds, as long as they're willing to help people get on board and make the system, the pickup system, easy for the community.
That's
and it's great for community building because especially with small family local businesses, I know how fierce the competition can be. And once you have a community of regulars and people who stand behind you who are local, it's great. It has a lot of power, and these people will be happy to support you once you're going through some difficult times in terms of running a business.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's great. And I love that you mentioned restaurants too. So if you are a restaurant or business owner, it would be so great to be able to connect with a farmer who has the capacity to compost or process with their animals all of the food scraps that you could give them. That would be so cool if all of the restaurants in an area were able to partner with farmers in the area and they, streamline the pickup process and the bagging process, whatever it is, to ship it to them. That'd be so good.
Yeah. Please go ahead, get in touch, research, get into it. Yes, it's possible. We've seen it many ways, many times. A lot of people are already doing it somewhere else. So yes, you can do it too.
Thank you so much for connecting with me and for figuring out the time difference and scheduling children being watched and
Thanks so much for inviting us, and it was a lovely chat. Sunny greetings to Canada.
Thank you. Have a good night, Ellie.
Have a
good day. I mean, it's like 10 p.m. here.
Have a good afternoon.
Enjoy your afternoon. Bye. Thanks again for listening, everyone. If you want to become a donor or a compost host anywhere in the world, go to sharewaste.com and sign up because it's totally free. And in fact, preventing food waste and composting food waste are number 3 and number 60 in Drawdown Project's list of 100 solutions for reversing climate change. So do it. If you can't compost where you live, there's someone nearby who can take your scraps, and you can find them on sharewaste.com. If you liked today's episode on composting, you'd probably enjoy episodes 11 with the Zero Waste Chef, number 14 about learning to cook, and number 24, the Living Composter. You can find all of those and more on our archives wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to be in touch, you can email the podcast at practicallyzerowaste@gmail.com. You can find us all on Instagram and Facebook at ShareWaste and at practicallyzerowastepod. And find me on Instagram at ElspethCallahan. This week, I'd challenge you to encourage someone to compost because every bit helps. Have a great week, everyone, and talk to you soon.